Influenza. HIV/AIDS. Tuberculosis. Ebola. The world has gotten smaller, and essentially, diseases, they don't recognize national boundaries. A threat to health anywhere can become a threat to health everywhere. In light of this scenario, many governments have stepped up their efforts in the fight against disease, not only within their own countries, but also overseas. Among these, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, has always been at the front lines of defense. With partners in over 60 countries, the CDC provides technical assistance and mentoring to help prepare for and respond to diseases worldwide. Hello, welcome to Expat Living. My name is Laneng and I'm your host today. Now you've just seen what CDC or U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has been doing to improve the healthcare capabilities to cope with global health challenges all over the world. Now in this episode of Expat Living, we'll be meeting with the American health experts representing CDC in Vietnam to see the tremendous impacts they have brought to the healthcare system here in the country.
We have some sort of...
James Kyle and Kai Bon are the two CDC health experts who have played an important part in developing Vietnamese health sector.
I'm not sure if everyone's familiar.
The CDC has partnered with the Vietnamese government, including institutes, hospitals, and organizations since 1998 to develop sustainable health systems to prevent, quickly identify, and control the spread of diseases, especially infectious diseases, to protect the health of Vietnamese and foreign residents.
WHO and CDC was involved in
whatever they're going to do.
Most of our activities are here focused on prevention and treatment of HIV, influenza, and overall global health security, which is the ability to detect and respond quickly to outbreaks. And in all of those areas, we are working in multiple aspects. We've been strengthening surveillance systems, so the ability to monitor disease and understand where it's happening, and then strengthening laboratory systems, and then also strengthening the health workforce.
My understanding is, but the rapid response team mainly...
Dr. James Kyle has led our influenza program and also what is called the animal-human interface.
I work mostly related to influenza viruses and how influenza affects people and animals and sometimes transmits between animals and people, is to help the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Agriculture to make better policies and advancements in the care and treatment of patients.
In our HIV program, one very important part of our program is strengthening laboratory systems, and Mr. Kyle Bond is really our team lead in that area.
And I work in the area of laboratory infrastructure development. And we focus on HIV testing. So all of our work is built around accurate diagnosis and timely delivery of the accurate results.
To get an insight into a part of what CDC Vietnam is doing and the significance of their work, we are now following James and Kyle as they go about the daily work in Vietnam. Dr. James Kyle is now checking out patients at the pediatric hospital, but not in the capacity of a regular doctor. Having worked in Vietnam for nearly 6 years, James is in charge of a very important part of the CDC Vietnam programs.
Today, we came to look in on the surveillance system that the CDC supports with the Ministry of Health for respiratory diseases.
A surveillance system for respiratory diseases requires frequent sample collections to build data from which policies are made to control and prevent diseases.
The significance of collecting samples for severe respiratory diseases is so that a country can know how much disease is present in the country, to know how to control the disease, how to prevent it, and also how to provide better care and treatment to the patients.
Hàng ngày chúng tôi đặt ra một cái nhiệm vụ là khám tuyển chọn bệnh nhân và lấy mẫu bệnh phẩm để lưu lại trong để hàng tuần thì có nhân viên cũng thuộc của cái chương trình đến lấy về làm kết quả.
There's a specific case definition or they have certain symptoms that we want to look for: coughing, runny nose, sore throat, fever or elevated temperature, and we want to make sure that the doctors and nurses are selecting the right patients.
Tell us what you're looking for here. Yes,
Samples are not only collected from human patients as sources of influenza, not limited to humans.
So we are now at the Ha Vy Poultry Market, and this is the biggest wholesale poultry market in the North Vietnam. Here, thousands and thousands of birds are traded every day. And this is also one of the places where Dr. James and other staff at CDC frequently visit to minimize the risk of avian influenza.
CDC assists the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in conducting surveillance for the animal diseases, specifically animal diseases that might transmit to humans, to try to make sure that bird flu does not get into the poultry and therefore there's a safe food supply for people to eat. With years of taking due care to try to eliminate sick birds, Ha Vy Poultry Market is one of the safest poultry markets in Vietnam because a lot of measures has been taken to prevent disease, and one of the best measures is to do surveillance and routine testing of the birds. He wants to test.
Samples from humans and animals are then processed in the lab at the National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology, or NIH, and the Department of Animal Health, or DAH, to build a bank of data. So here we are at NIH's National Influenza Center, and this is where the Ministry of Health tests for flu in humans.
This is also where the Ministry of Health can test humans for bird flu virus such as H5N1. So let's go take a look.
Yeah, sure. Samples are processed at the lab, following a sequence of steps that are closely monitored by CDC and NIH experts. This is to make sure that the final test results are accurate. While the results are reported back to the patients and doctors for appropriate treatments, they are also put into a database that shows the level of diseases for the whole country over different periods of time.
Trước đây tại Việt Nam thì mình mới có những cái giám sát nhỏ lẻ. Sau khi mà có cái sự hỗ trợ của CDC nói chung và các chuyên gia nói riêng thì đã xây dựng được cái hệ thống giám sát cúm tại 4 miền Bắc, Trung, Nam và Tây Nguyên trong vòng 10 năm.
Many meaningful findings have been drawn from these surveillance systems.
One of the things that we found is we've identified the primary influenza season in Vietnam. Flu occurs all year long, but we also know from our surveillance that from about June through September, there will be elevated numbers of sick children and sick adults in Vietnam from influenza. And so that helps the country to know when to vaccinate. Around April or May, that people should start getting their influenza vaccination.
1, 2, 3.
Through information from the surveillance system and the Ministry of Health can use to make better care and treatment policies for patients in the hospital, but also better control and prevention programs to prevent influenza.
Those cases in Spain and the United States.
Tôi cho rằng là cái hợp tác là tốt. Gần như hàng tuần thì họ cũng đều có những cái sang để mà bàn bạc với chúng tôi về đánh giá nguy cơ của dịch bệnh, bàn về các cái giải pháp về phòng chống, bàn về vấn đề truyền thông như thế nào, rồi chia sẻ những thông tin trên thế giới để mà mình tăng cường các hoạt động phòng chống dịch bệnh của Việt Nam.
Mà họ bị nhiễm ở bên kia mà họ vào. Chẳng hạn như đối với H1N1, đại dịch năm 2009 hoặc là khi mà xuất hiện H7N9 thì CDC đã sẵn sàng là hỗ trợ những cái giám sát tăng cường cũng như là những cái kỹ thuật chẩn đoán để cho mình có khả năng đáp ứng được nhanh đối với cả dịch.
Together with influenza, HIV/AIDS is among the top 10 causes of death in Vietnam. One essential measure to prevent HIV/AIDS from spreading is ensuring the tests for HIV give accurate and timely results, because more than 80% of a doctor's prescriptions are based on the lab test results. With nearly 6 years of experience working in Vietnam, Kaya Bond is CDC Vietnam's expert in this area.
I are visiting the National Pediatric Hospital, and we're at the hematology laboratory. The programs we support is international level accreditation. The international standards, which are International Standards Organization, ISO. So we support ISO accreditation for this laboratory.
One part of Kyle and the CDC staff's work is providing technical support, training, and monitoring the whole testing process to make sure that every single step meets international quality standards.
We're actually following a sample through the laboratory, and we're looking at the different steps that we're seeing. The first thing that happens is samples come in and they come to a reception area. The quality of the sample is looked at, the date. We're looking at the labeling to make sure that all the indicators, the name is on there. There's a barcode for helping track that sample. And then samples move from there to the different stations where they're getting hematology testing done. And all along the way, you'll notice the laboratorians, they're looking at that label and they're ensuring that this is the correct sample. Also, samples are entered into a database. It helps the laboratory maintain all of their data. It's very important that all of the instruments are well calibrated so that the results are correct. You also need ongoing maintenance, so you need to make sure the machine is functioning correctly. Okay.
Tháng 7 vừa rồi thì phòng chúng tôi đã được bên BOA đến thẩm định. Rất là vui mừng là đã đạt được cái chứng chỉ ISO 15189. Thì đấy là một cái niềm ao ước của rất là nhiều phòng xét nghiệm. Tôi luôn luôn là rất là cảm ơn cái sự hỗ trợ của CDC.
But once they get that international accreditation, that's international recognition of their quality, and it means that the doctors can trust the results. It means the administration trusts the work that's being done in the laboratory. So that's a very, very key component. When was it last?
CDC's goal is to support not only this particular lab, but dozens of labs nationwide to gain international accreditation. In order to do so, the CDC has partnered with NIHE in developing a reference lab that supports other labs in the country.
Right now I'm heading to the reference laboratory for HIV/AIDS to join Kyle and his partners to understand how we test for HIV/AIDS. Hi guys, hi. Em chào anh chị ạ. How are you doing, Kyle?
Good, how are you, Lene?
I'm good.
As a national reference laboratory for HIV/AIDS, this lab's role is to support every lab in Vietnam that does HIV testing.
When they reach to the lab and also here.
Một trong những nhiệm vụ đó là sản xuất các bộ mẫu ngoại kiểm. Mẫu ngoại kiểm là cái mẫu mà sản xuất viết âm và dương và đánh mù và gửi cho các phòng xét nghiệm tuyến dưới. Các phòng xét nghiệm tuyến dưới sẽ xét nghiệm các mẫu này và để tìm xem mẫu nào là dương và âm và gửi lại kết quả cho chúng tôi. Cái nhiệm vụ đó rất quan trọng và nhờ sự hợp tác của CDC Hoa Kỳ và Việt Nam mà chúng tôi đã nắm được cái kỹ thuật này và triển khai này từ nhiều năm nay.
So how does CDC and NIHE work together in HIV/AIDS testing?
CDC provides support to NIHE in helping actually develop this facility, so in helping them remodel so that they have the state-of-the-art facility, they have appropriate equipment, they have well-trained staff, and the right amount of space to actually work.
Đấy tôi đánh giá là những cái hoạt động và mang tính chất lâu dài bền vững đã giúp cho cái việc nâng cao chất lượng của hệ thống xét nghiệm HIV Việt Nam.
Raising the quality of HIV/AIDS laboratory testing and improving the surveillance system for influenza. These are two of the many programs that James, Kyle, and other experts from the CDC are working on with the Vietnam's Ministry of Health to help Vietnamese people live healthier, safer, and longer lives.
Our American health experts have not only contributed greatly to the development of the healthcare system here in the country, but they themselves have also found a place they now call their second home. So in the following part, let's see how Kyle and James have fallen in love with this land, its culture and people.
Hello. So Good morning, Madame.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine today.
Health too? Yeah. This is one of the things that I like about living in Vietnam is you can get involved in local things. You can get involved in local crafts, local art scene.
The local art of lacquer painting has fascinated Kyle since the first time he visited this studio owned by a former university art lecturer.
When I heard about lacquer, I got really interested. And there are very few places in the world that are using lacquer. Here it's used in a variety of different ways. It's used actually as a medium for painting, but also it's used for painting on objects like bowls or plates or platters. And it's also interesting because you include a lot of different materials. You don't just include the lacquer itself. You'll include materials such as eggshell, gold leaf, and silver leaf as the materials. That's why the conversation.
Anh thử tất cả mọi thứ chất liệu bởi vì anh yêu thích nó quá. Tôi ví dụ như là anh đi chơi anh thấy một cái mo cau như thế này và anh hình dung là tôi có thể dùng sơn mài được không? Và thực ra sau khi đã sơn lên cái mo cau này thì cái này sẽ rất bền. Tôi cảm động vô cùng bởi vì là niềm tự hào của Việt Nam là sơn mài mà lại được một người Mỹ yêu cái này thì tôi cũng cảm động và nghĩ rằng đây là một người rất đặc biệt.
The work can be very demanding. The work can be stressful. I'm living in a foreign country. So in doing the lacquer work, you're having a change of scenery. You're able to move from a very busy environment where you're working with lots of people to a very quiet place. You're kind of on your own. You kind of get into a zone where it's very meditative.
While Kyle has found his passion for the art of Vietnamese lacquer painting, James has found his love of Vietnam through a Vietnamese woman.
It happened strangely because I went to get my hair cut. After 2 or 3 times, the owner asked me if I wanted to meet his sister, and I said, no, not really. And this happened a few times. What I didn't know is at the same time, he was telling his sister, and she said no. After a few times, it ended up that we both said yes. She's got sleepy eyes.
Sau đó thì quyết định gặp nhau ở Hồ Hoàn Kiếm này. Sau khi gặp nhau thì cả hai đều rất là ngạc nhiên là rất nói chuyện rất là hợp.
Our character is very much alike. We have the same type of sense of humor. We've got actually being half a world apart, we have some same history in our lives and stuff that we can talk about.
Sau 2 năm bọn mình tìm hiểu nhau thì bọn mình quyết định là đi đến hôn nhân. Và kết quả của mối tình là hiện tại là một cô bé rất là xinh đẹp. Sở thích của gia đình mình là một là đến Hồ Hoàn Kiếm, nơi mà lần đầu tiên bố mẹ gặp nhau, và đây cũng là một nơi cảnh rất là đẹp ở Hà Nội và rất là thích hợp để cho trẻ con đi bộ, đi dạo trong cái bầu không khí này. Thứ hai là đến cửa hàng của anh trai mình ở trong bên salon ở trong sản xuất tiếp theo. Đấy là người anh đã giới thiệu mình biết James. Là một người rất là tốt bụng và rất là có trách nhiệm và là một người cha tốt, vì anh ấy công việc rất là vất vả nhưng mà vẫn thường xuyên giúp mình chăm sóc con. Mình cảm thấy là rất là yên tâm và anh ấy lại là một bác sĩ. Thành ra là nào mà con mình có vấn đề về sức khỏe thì người đầu tiên mà mình gọi là mình hỏi chồng.
I think one of the things, of course, I'd like for my daughter, once she gets to know why I was in Vietnam and met her mother, and I hope she can look back and see that when I was here, I did very good work with the Ministry of Health and with the Ministry of Agriculture to be able to help with disease control and disease prevention in Vietnam, and I hope she'll be proud about that.
So we have just met with the American health experts from CDC Vietnam and learned about what they've been doing here in the country to help build capacity for better disease control and prevention. Now on to today's segment of Time Out. Let's see what our reporter Michael Liu has to offer this week.
Hạ Long Bay, or the Bay of the Descending Dragon, is Vietnamese nature's crowning jewel. Here, among its many magnificent caves and islands, the visitors are mesmerized as man and nature become one. On Hạ Long's awesome list of fun, there are many ways you can experience the majestic beauty of the bay. So, have you ever tried one of these before? Hopping on this little baby might give you a completely different perspective from the sky. So what are you waiting for, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to be a heck of a flight. It's not only a boat that brings you out to the center of the area, but you also get to soar above the incredible landscape. Hạ Long seaplanes are a fantastic way to witness the peaks and waterscapes of Hạ Long 2-in-1 style.
Well, it's a 1, 2, 3, take my hand and come with me because you look so fine and I really want to make you mine. I said you look so fine and I really want to make you mine. Come on and get your kicks. Now you don't need the money when you look like that, do you, honey?
What makes this experience so unique is the bird's eye view from the cockpit, which transforms this natural wonder into a kid's mini paradise.
Well, I can see you are with me, but you were with another man.
Now that you've experienced the overview of Hạ Long, you might want to take your adventure back onto the water.
I've done a lot of seaplane traveling in the past, but it's the first time I've ever been so shocked. It's absolutely beautiful. It's shocking.
The first thing you need to do when arriving in the bay is to board one of these small boats which will take you to the biggest ship. From here you can experience the true beauty of Hạ Long Bay from the heart of itself. Let's get the party started.
I'm all at sea.
Aboard any of Hạ Long's exotic cruises, not only do travellers find many adventurous activities, but also the comfort to rest in a serenity inspired by your surroundings.
If only for a day, just me and my thoughts, sailing far away.
So after a tiring round of exercise, you may want to refresh and re-energize for further excitement throughout the night. What better way to do that but some beautifully cooked Vietnamese food? You have no idea how good this thing tastes. No idea. While multiculturalism may define your journey here, Hạ Long also celebrates this concept with food. From east to west and traditional to modern, Hạ Long's range of delicious on-board culinary options add the perfect lunch treat to your itinerary.
Jumping up and down the floor.
If you're a kayaking enthusiast who's not afraid of getting wet in the waters of the Descending Dragons, then perhaps Hạ Long may just offer the perfect treat for your sporting craving. Or even if you are a hopeless amateur like I am who wants to kayak as well, then there are professionals like Lum right here who will show me how to roll.
The dragonfly ran away, but it came back with a story to say.
Due to its great flexibility, this form of transport is greatly preferred as it gives you far better access into deeper and narrow caves that are just calling out to be explored.
They used to sing about the birds and the bees. The bees had declared a war. The sky wasn't big enough for them all. The birds, they got help from below, from dirty ponds and the creatures of snow.
Here, in the midst of the sea and island, I have just found the perfect escape from the noise and exhaustion of daily work.
Okay, this was harder than I thought, but I seriously had so much fun today, and I would seriously recommend it to any of you guys.
To top off this week's edition of Time Out, we've flown over the Vietnamese 8th wonder of the world. Enjoyed 5-star hospitality aboard the Emerald. Sailed out where the dragon rests among the limestone peaks. Hope you enjoyed the show, and see you next time.
And that's all we have time for in this episode of Expat Living. I hope that you've enjoyed it so far. Now remember to send us your comments and suggestions at expatliving@vtv.vn. And you can always watch repeats of our programs online at vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. This is Lanning, and goodbye for now.